The year is 1940. Europe has been invaded and overtaken by Nazi Germany. Only one nation stands in Germany's way of potential world domination, and that is Great Britain. She was the nation to beat. If Germany won against Britain, they could have almost total control of the Earth's waterways and could lead to global domination. But to take Britain was no easy feat. She was an island nation, one that hadn't been successfully invaded since Norman the Conqueror back in 1066. But Hitler had something that Norman the Conqueror didn't, and those were airplanes. They could fly over the English Channel without having to deal with the Channel's rough seas. The British were scared out of their mind. What would happen to the people if the Germans were successful? What of the Jews, the children, the king? There was mass hysteria and paranoia. Britain's situation looked bleak. But there was a glimmer of hope. A man named Winston Churchill. He was the Prime Minister of England and was brought to power after the last Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, resigned after mass protests because of his handling of Hitler at the Munich Conference, where he decided the fate of a sovereign nation he had never been to or was leader of. Churchill was not a politician, but an inspiration. With the threat of German invasion seeming imminent, he was not swayed by the notorious Nazi regime. He stood in the face of danger and inspired the people of Britain to not be frightened. In his speech, "We shall fight on the beaches," he says this:
"We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender!"
He wasn't scared of the Nazis, and this speech became the rallying cry for all Brits defending the homeland. And so the battle began on July 10th, 1940. The first of many dogfights began over southern England. A lot of people thought that the Germans would be at the advantage. The Luftwaffe had plenty of planes and a lot of pilots. But the Brits had a better advantage. They were some of the first to have radar, which was used to give a general location of the Luftwaffe to better intercept them. British planes also had ejector seats, which meant if a pilot was shot down, he could eject himself before he hit the ground and land with a parachute, so he could live to fly another day. The Luftwaffe did bombing raids during the day, which worked in the Brits' favor because it's hard to miss a huge squadron of bombers from far away. So then the Germans began nighttime bombings to better hit their targets. But a few months of attacking military bases and airfields, Hitler realized he would eventually lose to the Brits because their bases were too well defended to attack, even with bombings. So he then began his next step of the Battle of Britain, bombing civilian homes, parliaments, even Buckingham Palace to demoralize the Brits and pressure the government and military to surrender to Germany. But they kept fighting. Churchill kept inspiring his countrymen to fight. Even when outgunned, outmatched, and outnumbered, the Brits kept fighting, knowing that one loss meant a possible invasion of Britain by the Nazis. It was tough, it was hard, and it was costly. But finally, on October 31st, 1940, the Germans admitted defeat. A big and well-earned celebration came after, but not a long one. Now, the Germans suffered their first major defeat, and the British would be at their doorstep causing disruption everywhere they went for the Germans, and would one day lead to the surrender of Germany at the end of World War II.